You most likely clicked on this video thinking, wow, what an absurd idea, and I agree with you. As someone who lives in the city of Chicago, it seems absolutely nuts to consider. However, in the last decade alone, 2 proposals have been legitimately made for the Chicago area, or Chicagoland, to separate from the rest of Illinois. One in 2011 for Cook County to become a new state, which includes Chicago and its closest suburbs, and one in 2019 for just the city of Chicago to become a new state. This isn't something unique to this area either. You may have heard of ideas for California to split into 2 or more states, or similar plans to separate New York City from New York State. It's a trend in political discussion that seems to focus on the social and economic differences between large cities that dominate a state and the less populated rural areas of the state. Although both of these separation plans for Chicagoland quickly died in the Illinois House of Representatives, what would actually happen if Chicago did become a state? How would it compare to other states? And that's exactly what we will be discussing today. Let's go ahead and assume that the entire Chicago metro area, city, suburbs, and all, has just become the 51st state in the Union. A new star is put on the flag, it's given the appropriate name of Chicagoland, and its borders are drawn. The state would be made up of a handful of counties in northeast Illinois, 2 in northwest Indiana, and Kenosha County in far southeast Wisconsin. It would border Wisconsin to the north, Illinois to the west and south, and Indiana to the east. In terms of total land area, Chicagoland would be the 48th smallest state at just 6,235.4 square miles, beating Connecticut, Delaware, and Rhode Island. Poor Rhode Island just can't catch a break. With an estimated 2018 population of 9,453,884, Chicagoland would be the 11th most populous state in the country, having more residents than states like New Jersey, Virginia, and Massachusetts. Thanks to the Chicago area's current population density, the state of Chicagoland would be the most densely populated state in the country by far, with 1,515 people per square mile. For comparison, New Jersey at second place would have just 1,210 people per square mile. Now that Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin have all lost a sizable chunk of land and population, what would this do to their rankings? To start us off, Illinois would drop 6 places from the 25th largest to 31st largest state by land area. Spoiler alert, this is not the only time that we'll see Illinois drop drastically in ranking without the Chicago area. Indiana drops to 39th from 38th place, and Wisconsin remains the 23rd largest state despite losing an entire county. The population of Illinois would drop drastically after Chicagoland is created. It would lose well over 8.5 million people, leaving it with a population of only 4,110,321 and at 27th place in the country compared to its former 6th place. Now that places like Chicago, Aurora, Naperville, and Joliet are out of the picture, the largest city in Illinois becomes Rockford, with about 150,000 people. In fact, here are the top 10 largest cities in Illinois without Chicagoland. Yeah. Indiana drops from 17th to 19th place after losing 654,000 people. This includes its 8th and 9th largest cities, Hammond and Gary, respectively. Wisconsin would fall 1 place to 21st most populated after losing 169,120 residents, among them the 4th largest city in Wisconsin, Kenosha. Based on current congressional districts found in Illinois, Chicagoland would likely be given 12 representatives in the House, although that could increase to 13 or 14 depending on if redistricting occurs. Illinois, on the other hand, would most likely fall to just 6 representatives compared to the 18 that it has now. Let's take a quick break from all these numbers and population statistics to consider some less serious topics, such as what would the state flag of Chicagoland be? An obvious choice would be the flag currently used for the city of Chicago, but a redesign could take place to honor the stronger than ever unity between the city and its suburbs, perhaps adding another star to commemorate the region's statehood, or another blue stripe to represent the Fox and Des Plaines rivers. The capital of the state would most likely be Chicago, although a suburb like Naperville or Elgin could be chosen as a centralized location with more space for government buildings and offices. There is a whole host of other things that would have to be changed and implemented, such as a new state license plate. Hey, that one's pretty cool. a state seal, state symbols, and a state abbreviation. CH would likely get the job done. There's a far greater list of other things that would have to be done, but we only have so much time for one video. Now, let's get back to the more problematic topics. Thanks to the creation of Chicagoland, Illinois would no longer have any shoreline along Lake Michigan, effectively cutting it out of the Great Lakes region. Indiana suffers a similar fate, with its only remaining shoreline found in LaPorte County. Without any of the built-up industry and manufacturing found near the lake, and without the large number of important corporations which call Chicagoland home, the Illinois economy would become much more deeply rooted in agriculture, particularly soybeans, corn, and pigs. In fact, Illinois would lose around 80 to 85% of its entire gross domestic product, or GDP, without Chicagoland. And as a result, it would have an economy comparable in size to Kansas or Washington, D.C. Imagine that, the entire city of Washington, D.C. would have the same economy as Illinois without Chicagoland. That's crazy to think. Chicagoland, on the other hand, would become the 7th largest state economy in the country, with its 2019 GDP of $737 billion. If it were a country, it would be the 20th largest economy in the world, topping nations like Switzerland, Sweden, and Taiwan. Relations between the remaining state of Illinois and the Chicago area would be heavily impacted, which should go without saying. As a major example, the University of Illinois system, or U of I system, would be effectively split in two. The University of Illinois at Chicago would no longer be a part of the U of I system since it would not be in Illinois anymore, so they would have to restructure entirely. The flagship campus of U of I, located in the Twin Cities of Urbana-Champaign, gets a large number of its students from the Chicago area, so without that large flow of in-state students, their funding would be significantly impacted. On a similar note, the state of Illinois would suffer quite significantly from the large number of its residents who visit Chicago for important events, shopping, dining, and so on from downstate. The taxes that the now out-of-staters pay no longer go back to their own state. The ripple effect of losing Chicagoland could mean big trouble for the future financial success of Illinois. Without a doubt, residents of both states would have to make some serious economic changes, and major adjustments to business practices and lifestyles would need to occur over time. As a state, Chicagoland would boast one of the most comprehensive infrastructures in the country. A near-statewide rail service would exist thanks to the pre-existing Regional Transportation Authority, or RTA. The RTA oversees the Chicago Transit Authority, which provides subway and bus service to the city of Chicago, Metra, which is the commuter rail service for the suburbs, and Pace, which is the suburban bus service. The Chicago area also has an extensive network of interstate highways and other roads which would work well to keep the state unified. However, Chicagoland becoming a state presents another issue. Since the RTA and its infrastructure currently rely strongly on state funding from Illinois, establishing secure funding for the RTA and other public utilities might be a bit of a logistical issue, to say the least. In order to become a successful state on its own, Chicagoland would have to ratify a state constitution, establish a state-level government, and a whole host of other things that states do. This process of becoming a state would surely delay funding for public utilities like the RTA, as well as many other assets of the Chicago area, including education and law enforcement. In short, it would be one massive headache. Although interesting to consider, it is no overstatement to say that the Chicago area becoming its own state would be a massive undertaking for the region, Illinois, and the entire country, and that it will most likely never happen. The logistics of such an operation would be enough to make anyone's head spin, and in my honest opinion, there's simply no benefit to doing something like this. It was fun to think about what would happen though, and if you enjoyed this video, I'd greatly appreciate it if you subscribed and checked out some of my other videos about Chicago. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.